You guys, I cannot profess how much I absolutely wanted to love the new 13-inch MacBook Pro. I really did. It is such a great spot in Apple's lineup that blends the portability of the smaller 13-inch size with the power of, Apple's higher-end portable computers. It really has a good spot to fill and a lot to live up to. And especially with the entry-level model MacBook Pro 13-inch, don't buy it. In this video, we're going to tell you exactly why and what you should buy instead. Hey everyone, it is Andrew here from AppleInsider. And yeah, this is the new 13-inch MacBook Pro 2020 model. This right here is the entry-level model, so the high-end 10th gen Intel i7, all that jazz. Those are not shipping yet. We've had the entry-level model for a while, and we have been playing with it quite a bit, comparing the previous generation to the larger Mac lineup at scale. And yeah, so there's a lot to kind of touch on. But the biggest thing to pay attention to is the fact there is a difference. There's a massive difference between the entry-level 13-inch MacBook Pros, the two that Apple has kind of spec'd out for you, and the higher-end ones. They are physically differentiated by the number of Thunderbolt 3 ports on the side. This entry-level model here, it's got two USB-C Thunderbolt 3 ports here on the left side of the machine, whereas the upper-end unit has two on each side. And it's not just about the number of ports, there's actually a lot of differences there. So as we kind of go through this and focus on this entry-level model, you got to remember that there are differences between the two, and we're going to touch at that on the end of this video. Now, I know this machine right here, this is not the one that you all wanted. I know that. You know that. You all were waiting for that 14-inch MacBook Pro. Just like Apple did with the 15.4 inch, took it from a 15.4 to a 16-inch, gorgeous remake there, and we kind of expected that to happen to the 13-inch. And to be honest, it's still probably going to. The recent rumor have pegged that 14-inch MacBook Pro to land sometime in early 2021. But for right now, what you're getting is more of the same. It's the same design we've seen before, the P3 wide color camera, just Retina display on there. The dual Thunderbolt 3 ports, same aluminum body, giant trackpad, and even a lot of the internals have not changed on this entry-level model. But there are things that have changed. For instance, the speakers now support Dolby Atmos sound. That's pretty nice. The 3 microphones that are in here support beamforming. Should make it a little bit easier, especially as you're home taking a lot of conference calls with this, even though the webcam is still stuck at 720p and is still not great. But at least the microphones should be better for you. Other than that, we saw a lot of the same internals as I mentioned. The memory is going to be the same here, same DDR3 memory in these entry-level models. We have same graphics as before, and that's because these are holding out of the same Intel chips that we saw in the 2019 model. So this actually still has the 1.4 gigahertz 8th gen Intel chip inside of here. And of course, as we go through the benchmarks, it was scoring the same. Here are Geekbench results. These are pretty much the same numbers that we saw with the 2019 model, and for good reason. This is actually a tiny bit higher on the multi-core, but that's probably just likely due to variance in this Geekbench test because it's not, the exact same numbers every single time you score it. So really, even the scores here, everything is just going to line up slot for slot with what we had on the 2019 models, at least on this entry-level MacBook Pro. So as far as those go, there's not a lot of changes. So what did change, other than the couple things we mentioned? Well, Apple did increase the storage on here, so it's now going from a 128 starting out drive to a 256 gig starting out drive. That's very nice, and it's double the capacity down the line, so you can max the entry level out with 2 terabytes of storage in here. So that's definitely appreciated. Apple switched out the keyboard. That's probably going to be a big headlining feature for a lot of people. No longer do we have that butterfly switch mechanism. Apple has switched over to that tried and true scissor switch design. Whether you liked or did not like the previous keyboards, we're not going to touch on that in this video, but it is an updated design, about 1mm key travel. Keys feel very good to type on. We genuinely do like typing on it. It feels very solid. They're very responsive. There's not too much lateral movement there in the keys. They're very solid as you're typing across them. Important factors, and honestly, these are the biggest things for me, is we have the return of the physical escape key up there next to that touch bar, and in the lower right-hand corner, we have the return of the inverted T design for the arrow keys. The inverted T design is like a godsend. I still have like a 2016 MacBook Pro that I have just the kind of cluster of arrow keys down there, and it's so hard to feel them out with my fingers when I'm trying to navigate with them. So the inverted T design is where it is at. That's the headlining feature here, guys. The new MacBook Pro inverted T design returning to the keyboard. Not really, that should not ever be the headlining feature of a flagship Mac upgrade. Just saying. So why shouldn't you buy the entry-level 13-inch MacBook Pro 2020? And honestly, it just fits in a weird spot in the lineup at this point. If there was no MacBook Air, this would be great. It would be fantastic. Very few things that I gripe about, mainly the 8th gen Intel chips that are inside here that are delivering the same performance we saw in the 2019. That would be pretty much what I'd complain about. But we do have a MacBook Air, and performance against the MacBook Air is not that far off. The biggest thing, of course, is just the fact that this has a quad-core processor compared to the dual-core that those start out with. But even the MacBook Airs are starting off with those 10th gen Intel chips and have benefits of their own. And the new 13-inch MacBook Air can run that 6K display, whereas the entry-level MacBook Pro cannot. Those are things that just don't make sense. And if you need power, go for this $1,799 MacBook Pro, the 13-inch $1,799 model. If you don't need the power, stick with the portability. These are slightly bigger and heavier than the previous generation, these aren't hugely different than the MacBook Air in terms of size and weight, but it is noticeable enough that I'd rather have the portability than the extra power this affords. If you don't need power, which I feel like a lot of people don't, go with the Air. If you do need power, you actually need it, and you should jump up to those 10th gen chips. So what do you get with that higher end MacBook Pro, the 13-inch higher end with those Thunderbolt 3 ports? Honestly, quite a bit. So it does have the 10th gen Intel chips there, and those definitely just have a boon in performance just across the board. Not only that, but they bake in better graphics, the latest Intel Plus graphics, Iris Plus graphics, which gets you the support for 6K displays. I know you're not using a 6K display right now. I know you're not busting out your Apple Pro Display XDR and trying to hook it up to your MacBook Pro, or at least your entry-level MacBook Pro, but this isn't for now. This isn't for a couple years, 3 years from now maybe. You're still rocking the same machine, as you should be, because these will last a long time. And maybe you do have a 6K display at that point. It's nice to have that option. They're just more capable in general, but being able to support better displays is always going to be a good thing. Not only that, but we have faster memory. Apple has upgraded these to LPDDR4X RAM, and they start off at 16 gigs instead of starting off at 8 gigs, and they can be upgraded to 32 gigs, whereas the entry-level models can only be upgraded to 16. So you can pack more RAM into this machine, you can pack in more storage, go up to 4 terabytes of internal storage on the high-end models versus only 2 terabytes on the low-end models. Yeah, that's quite a bit. If you're asking me, between the two, you're getting additional Thunderbolt 3 ports, you're getting better graphics, better display outputs, you're getting higher capacities of RAM, higher capacities of storage, and much faster chips on the inside. If I'm going for power, I'm going for that model. I'm not going to be buying entry-level MacBook Pro. That said, this does offer things for those who don't want a MacBook Air. They still have the touch bar, and it does offer better improvements or better performance in general over the MacBook Air. So if you just really don't want to spend as much on that $1,799 model, there's nothing wrong with this. You don't have to justify it to us. This is still a good machine. In a vacuum, we'd give this thing a 4 out of 5, a 4 easily. But with the MacBook Air in the lineup and the higher end machines, they just have more to offer. Now, I want to hear what you guys think, so let me know down below in the comments, but better yet, reach out to me on Twitter at Andrew_OSU. And if you don't want to pick up one of the new MacBook Pros, whether it's the entry-level models or the high-end units, go ahead and find the best deals at the links down below in the description. Check out the Apple Insider price guides. They are updated daily and have the absolute best prices on all of your Apple gear. Hey everyone, did you guys like that video? be sure to click on that like button so we can create content that we know that you guys want to see. And follow Apple Insider on all social media channels. If you want the best prices on any Apple gear, check out the Apple Insider price guide that is updated daily. And until next time, we'll see you later.